Marcus Johnson was driving home after a long day at work. He taught history at the local high school. It was almost 8 p.m., and the road was dark. The streetlights were few and far between on this stretch of highway. As he drove, Marcus noticed a car on the side of the road. A woman was standing next to it, looking worried. She kept checking her phone and looking around. Marcus was tired and wanted to get home. He had papers to grade and dinner to make. But he couldn't just drive past someone who needed help. His mother had always taught him to be kind to others. He slowed down and pulled over behind the woman's car. He turned on his hazard lights so other cars could see them. "Excuse me," Marcus called as he got out of his car. "Do you need some help?" The woman looked up, startled. She was in her 40s, wearing a business suit. Her face showed relief when she saw Marcus. "Oh, thank goodness," she said. "I have a flat tire and I don't know how to change it. I've been trying to call for help, but there's no signal here." Marcus smiled. "I can help you change your tire. I'm Marcus, by the way." "I'm Ellen Peterson," the woman said, offering her hand. "Thank you so much for stopping. Not many people would." Marcus got to work. He asked Ellen for her spare tire and tools. While he worked, they talked. Ellen told him she was coming back from an important business meeting. She was the vice president of a local company. "I should learn how to change a tire," Ellen said, watching Marcus work. "It's a good skill to have," Marcus agreed. "My dad taught me when I was 16. It took about 20 minutes, but Marcus successfully changed the tire. His hands were dirty and he was sweating despite the cool evening air. Ellen seemed very grateful. "You're a lifesaver, Marcus. How can I thank you?" "No need for thanks," Marcus said. "Just help someone else when you get the chance." Ellen insisted on at least knowing his name and where he worked. Marcus told her he taught at Springfield High School. They said goodbye, and Marcus drove home, thinking no more about the event. It was just a nice thing to do for someone in need. Little did he know that this simple act of kindness would change his life forever. The next day was Saturday. Marcus was in his small garden, planting tomatoes. He loved gardening on weekends. It helped him relax after a busy week of teaching teenagers. His house was nothing fancy, a small 3-bedroom home in a middle-class neighborhood. But Marcus was proud of it. He had bought it 5 years ago, after saving for years. As he dug in the soil, he heard a car pull up outside his house. He looked up and saw a shiny black SUV with tinted windows. It was not the kind of car usually seen in his neighborhood. The SUV parked in front of his house. Marcus stood up, wiping dirt from his hands onto his jeans. He felt curious but also a little nervous. The driver's door opened, and a man in a suit stepped out. He was tall and looked important. Then the back door opened and Ellen stepped out. She was wearing casual clothes today, but she still looked professional. "Hello, Marcus," Ellen called, walking toward his garden fence. "I hope you don't mind us dropping by." Marcus was surprised. "Ellen, how did you find my house?" Ellen smiled. "I asked around at your school. I hope that's okay. I wanted to thank you properly for your help last night." The man in the suit stood beside Ellen. She introduced him as Robert, her husband. "My wife told me what you did," Robert said, shaking Marcus's hand firmly. Not many people would stop to help a stranger these days. "It was nothing, really," Marcus said, feeling a bit embarrassed by all the attention. "It wasn't nothing to me," Ellen insisted. "Robert and I want to thank you. We'd like you to come to dinner at our house tonight. Would that be possible?" Marcus was surprised by the invitation. He didn't have any plans, but he also wasn't sure about going to dinner at a stranger's house. Ellen seemed to sense his hesitation. "Please say yes, it would mean a lot to us." There was something in Ellen's eyes that made Marcus agree. "Okay, I'll come." Robert smiled. "Excellent. We'll pick you up at 7. As they were about to leave, Robert paused. "Oh, and Marcus, there's something important we want to discuss with you." This made Marcus curious. What could they possibly want to discuss with him? He was just a high school teacher who had helped change a tire. After the black SUV drove away, Marcus went inside to shower and change. He couldn't help wondering what the night would bring. At exactly 7 p.m., the black SUV returned. Marcus was ready, dressed in his best clothes, khaki pants, and a blue button-up shirt. He didn't often get invited to fancy dinners. Robert was driving, and Ellen sat in the passenger seat. They greeted Marcus warmly as he got into the back seat. "You look nice," Ellen said, turning to smile at him. "Thank you," Marcus replied. "I'm still not sure why you're doing all this for a simple tire change." Robert caught his eye in the rearview mirror. "Sometimes small acts of kindness have big impacts, Marcus." The drive took about 20 minutes. They arrived at a large house in the wealthy part of town. Marcus tried not to look too impressed, but it was difficult. The house was beautiful, white with columns in front and a perfectly manicured lawn. Inside, the house was even more impressive: high ceilings, expensive furniture, and what looked like real paintings on the walls. "Your home is beautiful," Marcus said. "Thank you," Ellen replied. "We've been blessed." A woman in an apron came out from what Marcus assumed was the kitchen. "Dinner is ready, Mrs. Peterson." "Thank you, Maria," Ellen said. She turned to Marcus. "Maria is our housekeeper. She's an amazing cook." They sat at a large dining table. The food was delicious, some kind of roast with vegetables and potatoes. They made small talk while they ate, discussing Marcus's teaching job and how long he had lived in town. After dinner, they moved to the living room for coffee. Marcus noticed several photos on the walls of a young woman who looked to be in her early 20s. "Is that your daughter?" Marcus asked, pointing to one of the pictures. The mood in the room changed instantly. Ellen's smile faded, and Robert's face became serious. "Yes," Ellen said quietly. "That's Jessica, our daughter." Robert put his coffee cup down. "Marcus, there's something we need to tell you. The reason we invited you here tonight." Marcus felt nervous suddenly. "What is it?" Ellen took a deep breath. "Jessica was in a car accident 6 months ago. She's been in a coma ever since." Marcus didn't know what to say. "I'm so sorry. I had no idea." "The doctors have done everything they can," Robert continued. "But they say..." His voice broke a little. "They say her chances of waking up are very small now." Marcus felt terrible for them, but he was also confused about why they were telling him this. Ellen seemed to read his thoughts. "The reason we're telling you this, Marcus, is because of something remarkable." "What do you mean?" Marcus asked. "Yesterday, after you helped me," Ellen explained, "I went to visit Jessica at the hospital like I do every day. And for the first time in 6 months, she showed signs of brain activity. It happened exactly when I was telling her nurse about the kind man who stopped to help me." Marcus was stunned. That's just a coincidence, surely." "Maybe," Robert said. "But maybe not. You see, Jessica was always our family's moral compass. She was always helping others, volunteering, standing up for what's right. Your act of kindness reminded us so much of her." "And then this happens," Ellen added. "The first positive sign in months. On the same day, a stranger shows the same kindness our daughter would have." Marcus didn't know what to think. Were they suggesting he had somehow helped their daughter? It seemed impossible. "We have a request," Robert said seriously, "and you can say no if you think it's too strange." "What is it?" Marcus asked. "We'd like you to visit Jessica in the hospital." The next day was Sunday. Marcus found himself walking down the clean white hallway of City Memorial Hospital. Robert and Ellen walked beside him. Marcus felt out of place. He had never been good with hospitals. The smell of antiseptic and the quiet beeping of machines always made him uncomfortable. "Are you sure about this?" Marcus asked for the third time. "I'm a complete stranger to your daughter." Ellen touched his arm gently. "We're sure, Marcus. Call it parents' intuition or desperation, but we feel like you might help somehow." They stopped outside room 412. Robert took a deep breath before opening the door. The room was private and spacious. There were flowers everywhere and cards on every surface. Jessica clearly had many people who cared about her. And there she was, a young woman lying in the hospital bed. She looked like she was sleeping peacefully. Her long brown hair was spread out on the pillow, and her face was pale but beautiful. Various machines surrounded her bed, monitoring her vital signs. A. Steady beep 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 filled the room. "This is Jessica," Ellen said softly, moving to stand by her daughter's side. She took Jessica's hand in hers. Marcus stood awkwardly at the foot of the bed. "Hello, Jessica," he said, feeling a bit foolish for talking to someone who couldn't. "Hear him! Please come closer," Robert encouraged. "You can sit here." He pointed to a chair near the head of the bed. Marcus sat down, still unsure of what he was supposed to do. Ellen explained that they had been talking to Jessica every day, playing her favorite music and reading her favorite books. "The doctors say she might be able to hear us even if she can't respond," Ellen explained. For the next hour, Marcus sat with the family. They told stories about Jessica, how she had volunteered at an animal shelter every weekend, how she had been studying to become a doctor, how she loved hiking and being outdoors. Gradually, Marcus began to feel a connection to this young woman. He had never met. She sounded like someone he would have liked to know. "Would you mind reading to her?" Ellen asked, handing Marcus a worn copy of To Kill a Mockingbird. It's her favorite book. Marcus took the book. He hadn't read this since his own high school days. He opened to where a bookmark had been placed and began to read. As he read, he felt more comfortable. His teacher's voice came naturally, and he found himself getting into the story. Suddenly, one of the machines started beeping differently. A nurse rushed in. "What's happening?" Ellen asked, her voice filled with worry. The nurse checked the machines and Jessica's vital signs. Then she looked up with a surprised expression. "Her brain activity is increasing again," the nurse said. "It's the second time in 2 days after months of no change." Ellen and Robert looked at each other, then at Marcus. "Keep reading," the nurse encouraged. "Whatever you're doing, it seems to be having an effect." Marcus continued reading, his voice a bit shaky now. He read for another 30 minutes before his throat became too dry to continue. When he stopped, the machine continued to show increased brain activity for a few more minutes before returning to its normal pattern. The nurse made notes in Jessica's chart. "I'm going to call Dr. Patel. He'll want to know about this." After the nurse left, Robert put a hand on Marcus's shoulder. "Thank you." "I didn't do anything," Marcus protested. "You did," Ellen insisted. "Somehow you did." As they left the hospital, that evening, Dr. Patel, Jessica's neurologist, stopped them in the hallway. "Mr. and Mrs. Peterson," he said, "the nurse told me about the activity in Jessica's brain. It's intriguing. We'd like to run some tests tomorrow." "Is she going to wake up?" Ellen asked hopefully. Dr. Patel's face was kind but cautious. "It's too early to say, but this is the first positive sign we've had in months. Something is happening." He looked at Marcus curiously. "And you are?" "Just a friend," Marcus said, not knowing how else to explain his presence. "Could you come back tomorrow?" Dr. Patel asked. "I'd like to monitor Jessica's brain activity while you're here." Marcus looked at Robert and Ellen's hopeful faces. How could he say no? "Of course," he agreed. "I'll be here." During the next week, Marcus visited the hospital every day after school. He would sit beside Jessica's bed, reading to her, talking to her about his day, or sometimes just sitting quietly while grading papers. Each time he visited, the machines showed increased brain activity. Dr. Patel was amazed and could not explain it scientifically. "It's as if she's responding specifically to you," Dr. Patel told Marcus. "We've had her parents, friends, even her boyfriend try the same activities, but the response is strongest with you." This made no sense to Marcus. He had never met Jessica before her accident. Why would she respond to him? On Friday, while Marcus was reading to Jessica, Ellen came into the room holding an old photo album. "I found something," she said, her voice excited. "I think I know why Jessica might be responding to you." She opened the album and pointed to a photo. It showed a much younger Jessica, maybe 10 years old, standing in front of Springfield Middle School. "Look at the teacher in the background," Ellen said. Marcus peered at the photo. There, standing behind a group of students, was a younger version of himself. He had almost forgotten. His first year of teaching had been at Springfield Middle School, before he moved to the high school. "I taught at the middle school 12 years ago," Marcus said, astonished. "Jessica would have been 10, Ellen confirmed. "She was in 5th grade. Were you her teacher?" Marcus tried to remember. He had taught so many students over the years. "I'm not sure. I taught history to 5th and 6th graders that year." Ellen turned the pages of the album until she found another photo. This one showed Jessica holding a certificate. And there was Marcus again, handing out awards at what appeared to be a school ceremony. "The history fair," Marcus said. Memories flooding back. "She won first place for a project on civil rights leaders." "She talked about that project for years," Robert said, who had just entered the room. "She said her history teacher had inspired her to research Rosa Parks and Martin Luther King Jr. Marcus was stunned. He had been Jessica's teacher, and he hadn't even remembered her. But apparently, he had made an impact on her life. "That's why she's responding to your voice," Dr. Patel said from the doorway. He had been listening. Familiar voices from positive times in a patient's life can sometimes break through the coma state. Marcus felt overwhelmed. What were the chances that he would stop to help a woman with a flat tire, only to discover that woman was the mother of a former student now in a coma? "Do you think," Marcus hesitated to ask, "do you think she'll wake up?" Dr. Patel's face was serious. "I can't make promises, but I can tell you this. She has a better chance now than she did a week ago." That night, as Marcus drove home, he thought about how one small decision, stopping to help someone, had led to all of this. If he had driven past Ellen that night, would Jessica still be showing signs of improvement? Or would she have remained in her unchanging state, her parents losing hope with each passing day? He thought about how connected everyone's lives were, how one small action could ripple outward in ways no one could predict. When he arrived home, Marcus did something he hadn't done in years. He pulled out his old teaching files and looked through the class photos from his year at Springfield Middle School, and there she was, Jessica Peterson, a smiling 10-year-old with bright eyes and a missing front tooth. He remembered her now, an enthusiastic student who always asked thoughtful questions and seemed to care deeply about history and justice. Marcus went to bed that night with a new sense of purpose. Maybe he was meant to help Jessica, to return. The spark of interest and enthusiasm she had shown in his classroom all those years ago. 2 weeks passed. Marcus continued his daily visits to Jessica's hospital room. The increased brain activity had become consistent during his visits, but Jessica still showed no signs of waking up. Ellen and Robert remained hopeful, but Marcus could see the strain on their faces. They had been living in this limbo for over 6 months, and even with the recent improvements, there was no guarantee Jessica would ever wake up. It was a Tuesday afternoon. Marcus had had a rough day at school. The students were restless with spring fever, and he had broken up 2 arguments before lunch. He was tired and almost called Ellen to say he couldn't make it to the hospital, but something made him go anyway. When he arrived at room 412, he found Ellen alone, sitting by Jessica's bed. "Where's Robert?" Marcus asked. "He had an important meeting he couldn't reschedule," Ellen explained. "He'll be here later." Marcus took his usual seat and pulled out the book they had been reading. But before he started, he noticed something different about Jessica. Her face seemed less pale, and he thought he saw her eyelids flutter. "Did you see that?" he asked Ellen. Ellen leaned forward eagerly. "See what?" "I thought I saw her eyelids move." Ellen watched her daughter's face intently. "The doctors say that can happen in coma patients. It doesn't necessarily mean anything." Marcus nodded, feeling a bit foolish for getting excited. He opened the book and began to read. He had been reading for about 20 minutes when it happened. Again, Jessica's eyelids definitely fluttered, and this time her fingers twitched too. Ellen gasped. "I saw it that time." The machines monitoring Jessica's vital signs started beeping more rapidly. Ellen pressed the call button for the nurse. Marcus continued reading, his voice shaking with excitement and nervousness. Jessica's fingers twitched again, and then her whole hand moved slightly. A nurse rushed in, followed by Dr. Patel. who had been on the floor doing rounds. "What's happening?" Dr. Patel asked, moving quickly to Jessica's side. "She's moving," Ellen said, tears in her eyes. "Her eyes and her hands?" Dr. Patel checked the monitors and then leaned over Jessica. "Jessica? Jessica, can you hear me? If you can hear me, try to squeeze my hand." Everyone in the room held their breath. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then, very slightly, Jessica's fingers curled around Dr. Patel's hand. Ellen burst into tears. The nurse quickly made a phone call, presumably to get more medical staff. "Keep talking to her," Dr. Patel instructed Marcus. "Whatever you're doing, it's working." Marcus moved closer to the bed. "Jessica, it's Mr. Johnson. You probably don't remember me, but I was your 5th grade history teacher. You did a project on civil rights leaders that won first place in the history fair. It was a really great project." As he spoke, Jessica's eyelids fluttered more insistently. And then, slowly, they opened. Her eyes were unfocused at first, looking at nothing in particular. "Jessica!" Ellen cried, grabbing her daughter's other hand. "Honey, can you hear me? It's Mom." Jessica's eyes slowly moved toward her mother's voice. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. The room was suddenly filled with medical staff. Dr. Patel was giving orders, and a nurse was gently asking Ellen to step back so they could examine Jessica. Marcus found himself pushed to the edge of the room as the medical team worked. Ellen stood beside him, clutching his arm so tightly it almost hurt. "She's waking up," Ellen kept saying. "She's really waking up." It took almost an hour for the medical team to complete their initial assessment. Jessica had indeed awakened from her coma, though she was still very weak and confused. She could not speak yet, but she was responsive to simple commands like blinking once for yes and twice for no. When Robert arrived, having been called by Ellen, the emotional scene repeated itself. He broke down in tears when he saw his daughter's open eyes. Dr. Patel finally came over to speak with them. "This is remarkable," he said. "I won't lie to you. We had almost given up hope after so many months with no improvement." "Is she going to be okay?" Robert asked. "It's too early to say for certain," Dr. Patel cautioned. "Coming out of a long-term coma is a process, not an event. She'll need extensive rehabilitation. There may be physical and cognitive challenges ahead, but the fact that she's responsive and recognizes you is an excellent sign." Ellen turned to Marcus and hugged him tightly. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for bringing our daughter back to us." Marcus felt uncomfortable taking credit. "I didn't do anything special. It was just luck that I was her teacher once." Dr. Patel shook his head. "Don't underestimate the power of meaningful connections. Jessica's brain responded to you for a reason." As the excitement settled, Dr. Patel suggested that Jessica needed rest. "Too much stimulation could be overwhelming for her right now. Why don't you all come back tomorrow? She'll likely be more aware then." As they walked out of the hospital together, Robert stopped Marcus in the parking lot. "You've changed our lives," he said simply. "How can we ever repay you?" Marcus shook his head. "There's nothing to repay. I'm just glad I could help." "No," Robert insisted. "There must be something we can do for you." Marcus thought for a moment. "There is one thing. My school's history department has been trying to raise money for a field trip to Washington, D.C. for our students. Many of them have never left the state, let alone visited the nation's capital." Robert smiled. "Consider it funded, for all the students." 1 year later, Marcus stood at the entrance to the National Museum of African American History and Culture in Washington, D.C. Around him were 30 excited high school students, all wearing Springfield High School t-shirts. The trip had been a huge success. Robert had not only funded it, but had used his business connections to arrange special tours and experiences for the students. As Marcus was about to lead the group into the museum, he heard someone call his name. He turned around and saw Ellen, Robert, and Jessica walking toward them. Jessica looked healthy now. Her recovery had been remarkable, though not without challenges. She had needed to relearn how to walk and had spent months in speech therapy. But her determination had impressed everyone, including her doctors. "Mr. Johnson," Jessica said, smiling broadly. Her speech was still a bit slow but clear. Surprise! Marcus hugged the family. What are you doing here? We wanted to see the results of our donation, Robert explained. And Jessica insisted on seeing the African American History Museum, something about a project she did in 5th grade. Jessica laughed. I remember parts of it now. I did a project on Rosa Parks and Martin Luther King Jr. My teacher made history come alive for me. Ellen squeezed Marcus's arm. That teacher changed our lives twice. Marcus introduced Jessica to his students, explaining how she had been his student many years ago. The teenagers were impressed by her story, especially when they learned she was now back in college, studying to become a doctor again. As they walked through the museum together, Marcus reflected on the amazing chain of events that had brought them all here. One simple decision to stop and help someone had led to so much good. Jessica fell into step beside him. You know, she said, the doctors think I could hear things while I was in the coma. Not everything, but some things. I remember a voice, reading To Kill a Mockingbird. Was that you? Marcus nodded. Your mom said it was your favorite book. It is, Jessica confirmed. You know what I remember thinking, somewhere in that darkness? I thought, I know this voice. This is someone who cares about doing the right thing. Marcus felt tears come to his eyes. I'm just a history teacher who stopped to help someone change a tire. Jessica shook her head. You're the person who taught me that small acts of kindness can change history. You taught me that in 5th grade, and you proved it again last year. As they stood looking at the exhibit on the civil rights movement, surrounded by students eager to learn, Marcus thought about how interconnected all their lives were, how the lessons of history and kindness repeated themselves in unexpected ways. What had begun with a flat tire on a dark road had come full circle, and Marcus knew he would never again drive past someone who needed help, because you never know how one small act of kindness might change the world. The end.